Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. So I was not planning on doing this project yet. If you watched the video that I just put out on sizing up commercial patterns, I mentioned in that video that I was planning on doing this project like sometime way down the road and I didn't know when that was. But then I realized at the end of filming that I had already done my mock-up, and that's the hard part. And the rest of this dress looks, knock on wood, easy. Famous last words, right? So I'm kind of thinking that now that I took the time to do the mock-up, I can do the rest of this dress this week and like it'll be fine. So that's my goal. So if you did miss the last video, I am currently working on Simplicity 8941, which is the 1790s American Duchess pattern for Simplicity. And I will link that first video up here where I do the mock-up for the bodice. So now that I've done that mock-up, it should be pretty easy. I have picked out my fabric, which I'm trying to do this all from stash. So the fabric that I'm going to be using is this cotton dobby stripe is what they call it, I think. I don't even know if those stripes really show up on screen, but basically it is a sheer stripe and a not so sheer stripe, but the whole fabric is fairly sheer. I honestly kind of wanted to do like a beautiful silk gown like the one that Lauren did from American Duchess, where she did like this beautiful just black dramatic gothy 1790s gown, and I really would love to do something like that, but I just don't have any silk fabric that would work for that. Like, I guess my new red silk taffeta would kind of work for that, but I don't know that I'm ready to like use that right away on this. And I already have a red Regency gown, and so I feel like I don't want to do something not exactly the same, but so close to the same in something that is fairly close fabric. So nothing else in my stash is like dramatic. I've got like pinks and yellows and yellow gingham and I don't know, nothing that would work for the 1790s. So cotton it is, because these gowns are so commonly depicted in cotton anyway, and I've had this in my stash for like a little bit. I have used the same fabric for a 19-teens dress, which I will pop on screen here, and then I started a 1950s style blouse that I never finished. It is one of my few UFOs, and that's out of this fabric too, but I believe I still have 6 something yards, so I should be good because the pattern calls for just over 5, I believe. So since I've already done the bodice mock-up, I'm just going to recut the bodice in muslin instead of old sheets, because I think it wants that sheer type thing. And so that's the under bodice, and the over bodice is going to be in the striped dobby voile, I don't know, whatever it is, the really lightweight cotton with the little stripes on it. And then the skirts, I believe, are just cut in the voile. I have not looked at the instructions for this at all. I probably should, because, you know, that would make sense, but I'm probably also not going to follow much of them. So my goal for today is just to get everything cut out. And the one caveat to that, I'm not going to cut out sleeves yet because I always do sleeves later, and I do have to change the pattern shape for the piece that is like that goes on the outside of the bodice, the outside bodice front piece, because that one is based on the inside bodice front piece, and if you watch that last video you'll know that I changed that piece a lot, so I have to change the outer piece as well. But that's it, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Editing Rebecca here. First off, ignore this crazy 1790s hair because I actually just finished taking pictures of the finished dress, so you will see more of this later. But also, I realized that I never actually showed you that red silk taffeta that I mentioned because I had to edit out this next clip from one of the Stripey Bustle vlogs. So I am putting it in here because I really wanted to show you my fabric haul, and I know that everyone loves fabric hauls. So please enjoy this next clip. I want to show you some fabric that I got because I was kind of bad and I bought some fabric, including like a whole bunch of silk last week, and it already got here. So the first one is not silk, but I just feel like with all of the stripiness that's been going on, it's very fitting for this video because I got more stripes. Obviously, it's not for this project. This will be for a future project down the line, but my friend Vanessa of Pink Sewing was destashing this, and I could not buy it from her, especially considering I was like the fourth person in line on the destash page, and somehow I still wound up with it. So it just felt like fate. It just was calling my name. I love this. It's a lighter weight than the cotton that I've been working with the red. So I think that this is going to be able to do some nice like flowy stuff too. The stripes are close to the same. They're a little bit wider on the blue and white here than they are on the red and white, but they're pretty close to the same. But yeah, it's a really nice light fabric. So I'm excited to do something with this. Probably not this year. This is probably going to be a next year thing, but I have already, of course, been looking up inspiration, and part of me is thinking, so there's 8 yards of this and it's wide. Part of me is thinking about doing 2 smaller projects, like a 19-teens dress for one, and then possibly there's these great 1830s dresses that are like stripy skirts, or skirts, period, just colorful skirts, and then white blouses with huge pelerines. And I feel like that's really fun, so this might be that. Okay, now on to the silk. So last November, I guess it was, my friend Sarah of Founding Mother did me a favor, and when she was in LA, she went to the fabric district and looked for some stuff for me, and as part of that, she sent me a whole bunch of pictures from inside of one of my favorite stores, Luxury Fabrics, in the LA Fabric District. It's like 3 doors down from Home Fabrics, if you're familiar with Home Fabrics. And I love Luxury Fabrics. Like, they always have such good prices on everything. And so anyway, she took all of these pictures of stuff for me, and then I saw a fabric on the Fancy Styles Fabric Live last week, I guess, that looked really familiar. And I realized it was in one of the pictures that Sarah took for me. And Luxury Fabrics, if you know what you're looking for, they will let you order it by phone, and then you just have to pay shipping, which shipping's kind of expensive, but their prices are so inexpensive that it's totally worth it. So I got some quilted silk fabric for a future redingote project as an 18th century hooded garment. It is this gorgeous red shot black. Ugh, so pretty. And although the quilted bits are squares, I think I have enough yardage. I bought 8 yards. I think I have enough that I can turn it on its side and use it on the diagonal so that it's diamonds, because that is more historically accurate for the 18th century. But it is backed with like a cotton or something like that. And in fact, I forgot about that when I first opened the roll, because it came on this roll of fabric. And I forgot about that it was backed with cotton. And I opened the package and I'm like, oh no, they sent me something that wasn't silk. And then it took me a moment, and then I was like, wait a second. No, that's the back side. And sure enough, the inside is this gorgeous red shot black. So super, super excited with this. And when I was contacting them, I asked them if they had a solid that would kind of coordinate with this and another fabric that I had been thinking about getting, but then I actually didn't wind up getting it because this other fabric, the solid, was so pretty that I felt like I wanted to spend the more expensive on the per yard of the solid fabric than get this kind of like little pinstripey fabric that's really not historically accurate. So I got this gorgeous kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it's almost a cinnamon red silk taffeta. Listen to that. It sounds so nice. So yeah, it's a silk taffeta, kind of like a cinnamon red. It's got just that little bit of like orangey tones to it, which I totally love. And it actually does work pretty well, surprisingly, with the quilted silk, but I'm almost certainly not going to use them together. This is going to be a wonderful shade of red for this 1890s blue and red dress that I found in an Australian museum, which I will pop up here if the rights are available, and otherwise I'll put a link to it down in the description. When I first saw that piece last year, I fell in love with it. I knew that someday I would have to make it, and this is going to be the red for that project, so yay. And I might have gone a little bit overboard because I was thinking I kind of wanted enough for like 2 projects because the price was so good, and so I got 12 yards. Yeah, because I figure if I'm gonna pay the same for shipping, I might as well just get like a lot of it. So this was $12.95 a yard, and I got 12 yards. And this was 20% off of, I think, $12.95 a yard. So like, amazing, amazing prices. I mean, I got 20 yards of silk, and including shipping, I paid $263. Like, oh my gosh. Can you even? So yeah, if you're in LA, or if you feel like calling them and bugging them and doing stuff like I did, Luxury Fabrics is so your friend. They are amazing. I go there every time I go to LA, and they're wonderful. And I'm really, really happy with all my silks. Yay. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Well, I have all of my pieces cut out now, but that will be it for today. So all the bodice pieces, I should say, are cut out now. I have not done the skirt pieces, but the bodice, it's lining and then the outer piece for each one. I'm a little bit concerned about the front outer piece because I realized that the pattern shape, the way that the bottom of the bust goes, is like really pretty different. So like this is the outer one and then that's the inner one, and you can see even down at the bottom it doesn't line up, and I've matched up some of the notch points here, and so it's a little bit disconcerting because I'm hoping that I cut it right. I actually wound up cutting a little bit of excess both above and below where it goes out, so that if it needs to angle differently, then I have some room and I can just cut out the extra. And I still haven't read the instructions, so I don't know if that's what I'm gonna have to do next, because I don't know if they want me to treat it as flat lining or bag lining. I'm not doing bag lining, but I should probably read the instructions and at least find out what I'm supposed to do before I completely ignore them. So anyway, I will pick this back up again tomorrow. So I'm back at it with the 1790s gown today, and I thought that I was going to start by cutting out the skirt pattern, but then I decided I didn't want to do that yet, and I started putting together the bodice. So what I have done so far is completely not the pattern instructions. And in fact, I looked at the pattern instructions and I looked at the American Duchess Guide for Dressmaking, whatever that full title is, and looked at both of them and decided I didn't want to do either of those things, and created my own way to put this together. So I started with the back pieces here, and the first thing that I did was I seamed together the lining pieces, just these curved seams here. I sewed those all together, and I did that on the machine, and then I pressed those so that the seam allowance was all facing down towards the side back pieces. Then I took my outer pieces and I laid down the stripy bit of the center back piece. I laid that down on the, what is, I guess, the inside, so that I had wrong sides together, basically, of the pattern piece. So I just laid that down and pinned that all in place. And then I took my side pieces and I laid them down, pinned them up to the corners, and then as I got to the curved seam here, I folded that under and pressed it in place and pinned it right on the edge. And I did that so that I can kind of do a sewing method like I did with my Amalia jacket pattern from Scroop Patterns, which I will link that down up above and down below so that you can see that video if you haven't seen that one already. But I wanted to go with like the 18th century hand sewn back seams right here because I thought that'd be really pretty. But I'm also not doing this fully 18th century hand sewn method. So once I did that on both sides, I sewed that on with a little prick stitch, and then I actually took off the pins on this area here, lifted up this section, and I trimmed down my seam allowance. And I did that because this is a pretty sheer fabric and you could really see the seam allowance in this section, and it was a 5/8 inch seam allowance originally. So I think I trimmed it down to about like 3/8 of an inch. And then I went and I folded down the neckline, the full 5/8 inches, both outside and inside, folded them to the inside, pressed them in place, and pinned them. And once that was done, I serged all around the rest of the outside. And so this is now all fully contained, other than the top neckline, which I haven't actually sewn yet, but I will sew that. So Then I went and I looked at the fronts and realized that the way that the pattern instructions do tell you to put together the fronts mean that I can't do that until I have the front skirt ready and cut out and stuff. So I put the bodice to the side. Now I'm cutting out the skirt pieces. And I know that I did a lot of changes to the bodice sizing, which you will have seen in that previous video, but it turns out that the skirts on this are like incredibly short. Now granted, I'm 5'10". We've been over this if you've been here before. So I tend to need to lengthen all of my skirts. But basically this skirt pattern, I held up the front to myself, and I had already left on 5/8 of an inch that was just like me not cutting on the line of the pattern, me just leaving it to where it was printed or where it was cut to originally, you know? And so with that 5/8 inches already on there, holding it up here, the top of the skirt, which should be hitting here, plus a seam allowance, plus a hem at the bottom, hit here at my natural waist. So yeah, way too short. To include the seam allowance and a 1-inch hem, I wound up adding 6¼ inches to these pattern pieces. So I'm going to cut out these pattern pieces now with that 6¼ inches extra added to them. And I'm still a little torn on whether I wanted to do the one with the train or not. I think I'm going to, just because like they're so pretty and like majestically flowing with the trains, and I just feel like that'd be fun even though it's not practical. So I'm gonna put it on, and I can always cut it off if I don't want it there, but I have enough fabric that I might as well. So I'm gonna spend the rest of the evening probably cutting out these pieces, and if I get them all done, I will show you how to put them together. So I'm in the middle of cutting out these skirt pieces now. I've already cut out the front and also the back. This is the side back, and it's kind of annoying that the front and the back, so I'm working with, I'm not sure, I think this is 60-inch wide fabric or something close to it. To be honest, I haven't measured it, but the front and the back were a little bit narrower than the width of the fabric by like, I don't know, 1.5 inches each, I'd say, or, you know, 1.5 inches doubled, because this is doubled. But then we get to the side back and it's like 2.5, 3 inches too wide for the fabric doubled, like folded in half. And it's just like, why? Why don't we just make our 3 pieces all the full width of the fabric? Luckily, I did actually cut the front and the back, the width of the fabric. So I have already made up this bit plus maybe about a 1/2 inch more. So I'm just going to cut this the width of the fabric too. This one is not on the fold. That one will be like cut down the side over there. The other 2 are both on the fold, and it's just makes it so much easier if we're just working with a selvage edge over here. So that's what's happening. I'm going to be working with 3 selvage edges, which means that, of course, these sort of markings up here don't necessarily mean much because they're going to line up differently. But you know what? I don't care. It's really just like a whole bunch of really pretty sheer type fabrics, which I'm a little bit concerned about because this isn't lined or flat lined or anything like that. And I'm honestly not sure petticoat wise what to wear it with still. I think I'm going to wear it over my Regency petticoat, but I just feel like that's not going to be enough body for this. Also, I probably shouldn't have cut the train because this train is like really freaking long. So it's a little much, but I had enough fabric, and I will have just enough fabric because having to lengthen each one 6¼ inches, I wound up using an entire 1/2 yard extra. So I will have enough fabric for the sleeves, which is great because that's all I have left. And that's it. So I'm going to keep cutting these out, then I might call it a night. So it's way past when I should have gone to bed tonight, like a good hour at least, I think, because I kind of lost track of time, but I wanted to show you what all I've done, which feels like nothing and is also super haphazard. So I started, I think, with the bodice front on one side, and I folded down the neckline, which is this bit right here, to make a casing. So it's folded twice, and then that is sewn by machine. And while I was folding that down, I also folded the lining bit down so that I could make these parts of the lining match and pin them in place. And then once I got over here, I realized, oh shoot, I needed to finish this edge first because that's part of the casing. And so then I picked open part of it and then started to fold this, and then realized that even though the instructions say to do this part folded and this part folded separately, which by the way, I think I had already folded this part at that time, but not sewn, it's just pinned. Even though the instructions say to do that separately, I was like, well, but that'll make a not clean edge right here, so let's just do them together. Of course, the thing is that with doing them together, now I'm going to have to make some sort of an eyelet hole or something for my channel. I'm really not sure. Because this is the channel. This side I haven't fully pressed it down yet, but I have fully pressed it down over on this side. That is the underbust channel for the drawstring to go through. And so that's all pinned in place over here. I think I'm going to sew that by machine, probably just to be more secure in the channel, but I'm not sure. This part's gonna get sewn down by hand. This is the center front opening, which just ties with the two drawstrings, which, by the way, I never did kind of like size out the fact that this is larger than this when it's pulled up, but I don't know. I mean, I guess it's not that much larger, so it'll just be a little poof. I really don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, so mostly everything's pinned, but obviously these are seamed together. This is the skirt portion here, and then the bodice portion here. You're looking at everything upside down right now, and that's all seamed together. Again, it's pressed down on this side, ready for stitching. This side I've pressed and pinned, but I haven't attached the muslin lining to it yet, as far as like lining everything up over here, because again, past my bedtime. So I have a lot of random stuff to do tomorrow that I hope I remember what all I need to do, but I kind of already did like half of it, sort of, so hopefully that side will be easier to do then, and then I can figure out about adding this to the sides and the back and everything like that. But even though I'm deciding to do a bunch by hand, I feel like it's still gonna go quickly, so hopefully that's not, you know, famous last words and all that, but ideally I want to get, I don't know, a lot of this all assembled by Friday morning. I don't know that's gonna happen, but it feels like I'm in an okay place. So anyway, I am going to go to bed. I will talk to you tomorrow. It's the end of the night Thursday, and unfortunately I just didn't wind up feeling like doing much sewing today, so I got very little done. I did hand sew this entire opening, so that's all done with a prick stitch on here. It was really difficult, I found, to do the curve, and I hope that it looks right, but I did the whole rest of it here. You can see this is the back side of the stitches, but then the front side really looks quite nice. And then I also sewed down the channels here. Oh, and what I wound up doing was I actually put tiny little hand-done eyelets right there. So there's a little eyelet, and that way the drawstring will wind up just coming right out that eyelet. And the channels themselves, though, that's done by machine. And then I did also join these two together on this side. So I did prick stitching all the way down there to there. But that's unfortunately all I've done today. So I think that I'm still in an okay place. I'm no longer feeling that great about my progress. But tomorrow I will get that sewn down, get the channels threaded in, and then assemble the lining piece on that side. And once I assemble the lining, I mean, I think that this edge is just going to be serged, so that should be easy enough. And then I think it's mostly a matter of attaching the skirt panels and gathering the skirt panels up. I'm not positive how this part goes together because I need to finish this edge, obviously, but then also like part of this is gathered, but I think part of it is static. So I feel like this might get attached somewhere in there. And since I'm kind of ignoring the directions, I guess I just have to make that up myself. So anyway, I hope that I get a lot of sewing done tomorrow, because otherwise I'm not going to finish this week, and I really want to. So I just thought I'd pop in and show you what I've been working on. I did everything on the one side that I'd already done on the other side that I showed you. But other than that, what I've now done is I've hemmed the bottom of the lining part of the blouse. I've just turned this up about 1/4 inch twice, including the part over the dart here. And I sewed that all down by machine. And then I serged around the whole outside like I said I was going to. So basically that means up the sides and around the arm's eye and then up the top of like the shoulder to back piece. And yeah, that was everything, because at that point it gets to the hand sewn bit over here, and I did do the prick stitching on this side just like I had on the other. And now what I'm doing is the center front has a really big overlap so that it can hook an eye or whatever closure, but so that the closure can be an overlap. So right now what I've done is I've folded in all but 1/2 inch of that overlap, and that means that I'll get a 1 inch overlap total with 1/2 inch coming from each side. And I'm just going to stitch this part down by machine, but yeah, it's just folded in. This is what the outside looks like there. So it's folded in to the inside and it's going to be stitched down by machine. And then at that point I can join the skirts together. All right, so I have now joined up the back bodice piece with the side back here and also up here at like the shoulder back, I guess is what it is, since the shoulder is actually like up here. And that went together really well. I still haven't actually sewn this bit by hand. I still need to do that, but I was really careful to match up the corners there so I get a nice sharp corner. So that's lovely. And then I also put my drawstrings in here at the waistband and made sure to stitch them down, stitch the ends of the drawstrings down as I was like finishing this corner here, which this was just kind of, I don't know, weird, and I felt like I was kind of tapering out the channel for the drawstring, so hopefully that works. But what I've now done is I obviously have assembled, well maybe not obviously, but I have assembled all of my skirt panels here. And the one that didn't have a selvage, there was like one side of one that didn't have a selvage, and this one. And I serged that one, and I serged all along the tops of these 3 back panels as well. Because I figure like from the outside, even though it's fairly sheer, I don't think anyone can see that it's serged. You can just see that there's a seam there because I'm not felling it because I don't want to. So anyway, now what I've done is I've run gathering stitches on the machine up here at the tops of the skirt backs. I have marked the center back, but I haven't put any other markings on here. And I'm just going to pull it up and kind of see where it wants to be with this back. If I need to, I will go and look at the pattern for markings. But if you remember from before, that pattern didn't actually work correctly with how my fabric laid out, just for the widths of the fabric. So the seam lines actually aren't quite in the right place. So if there are markings that have to do with seam lines, which I'm sure there are, I can't really use them anyway. So anyway, I'm going to pull those stitches up and fit them to the bodice, and that will probably be it for me tonight, doing sewing, attaching that there, and then also probably doing the prick stitching that little bit there, because my goal was to get to a point where I was ready for sleeves and a hem, and once I do that, I'm ready for sleeves and a hem, so great. Well, I really hope that it fits better on me than it does on Antoinette, because it is not fitting her very well around the bust area. And like, this is one of those things where, yes, I mocked up the lining, but I didn't mock up the outer, and I'm worried things aren't playing right between the two. So, and of course, it's going to be really, really hard to undo and change things if it's not right. So this might be interesting. Hopefully, I plan to try her on tomorrow, but also it's freezing here, so I don't know that I'm going to want to, because I tend to make things seasonally, and since this was a completely unplanned project, this is like a summer dress. This is not a 26 degrees outside and apparently feels like 15 type dress. So I don't even know when I'm going to be able to take pictures of it, which I really hope to take at least a few for this video, but they might have to be like inside, and I'll give you better pictures later. But yeah, I mean, I did everything that I wanted to get to today. I just have sleeves left, which I have not mocked up the sleeves yet either, so I do need to do a sleeve mock-up first, and then it's sleeves and hem, and the hem will be obviously when I try it on and stuff too, which, I mean, I guess I suppose I could mark the hem and everything once I try it on tomorrow without even waiting for the sleeves. I guess that would be fine. I feel like it's well, I don't feel like it's too long in the front. If anything, I'm maybe worried it's a little short in the front. The train is a little extra, and this type of dress where it's like sheer white, it's like, do I want a sheer white train? Especially because currently I'm going to be wearing it over my Regency petticoat, which is like slightly shorter petticoat and definitely doesn't have anything to fill out the train. The back of this, by the way, looks like this. So I do really like the look of it. Hopefully it was worth it to do the hand sewing here and here and here. I think it might be. What I did with the fullness here was basically I put as much fullness as possible as far to the center as I could. So I gathered it up until it would not fit anymore, and then I started to kind of taper it out to the sides so that there's a lot less fullness here on the side than there is in the back, but the sides are still a little bit more full than the front. The one thing that I'm not super happy with was where I tried to meet that casing that has the drawstring right here, and then I had to like flip it so that it wasn't a casing, so that it was a seam, and because of that there wound up being no gathering at all right here, which hopefully my arms will cover that, because otherwise it does look a little bit weird that there's like some gathering here because of drawstring, no gathering at all, and then gathering, lots of gathering. So, whatever. But I mean, I do think it looks really nice and flowy, and that train is ridiculous. And yeah, so far, I mean, assuming that it fits, I'm quite happy with it. So I will be back when I'm trying it on. Alright, so I mocked up the sleeve, and I figured what better time than to try everything on while fitting the sleeve. So I have everything on, and as you can maybe see, there is an issue. And that's mostly just that the neckline, for some reason, it's almost like it's causing this little tuck right here. Like it's fitting fine here, and then right here it's having an issue. So I'm actually tempted to just make, well, no, I guess making a dart would pull that up too much. I don't know. I have to do something with the liner. The outer part, because it's on a drawstring, that fits just fine. And in fact, it fits pretty darn perfectly. I'm really liking how it looks. But yeah, the inner part is just not quite right once you pull the outer part tight. So I don't know what's going on there, but I've got to fix it, because otherwise I'll be constantly like fiddling with it, you know, that feeling. So something's got to give there. I'm just not sure what yet. I might even just be cutting it down. I know that in the original pattern, like before I altered it, it was way lower than the outer part, and I feel like that would show because the outer part's sheer. So I don't want to take it too much lower, but maybe just a little bit lower is what's needed. So as far as the sleeve goes, it is way too big, and I actually didn't even size it up. So I pinned together the just paper pattern of the sleeve as a size 22, which again, the rest of me is more like a size 24 or 23. I don't know. I was kind of in between. And so anyway, I pinned it together, and then I did go up to a 24 in the rise of the sleeve here. So in doing that, I wound up making the like gusset part of the sleeve, this part of the sleeve right here on the armpit, I wound up making that a little bit larger, but the entire sleeve is just too big. I mean, we're talking like, these are supposed to be pretty fitted sleeves, and also they're not supposed to be so gathered, and so by making this smaller, I'll get rid of a lot of those gathers as well. So my hope is that I can do that without completely recutting the sleeve, but I feel like I might be wrong on that. So we shall see if I can just like take it in. It's a funky sleeve. I don't know that I really made the right choice by doing the sleeve from the pattern, because the way that it is it's a one-piece sleeve with the seam right here, but then it's darted right here, which is just making weird elbow points. Look how pointy that elbow is, instead of just like curving this seam. So maybe with it being so big, maybe what I should just do is create a seam there, because I have enough fabric, and that might actually be the best solution. So I might give that a try. Oh, also the sleeve pattern is actually twisted. Like when you hold it up to each other, if you match up the sides, it twists where it folds. So do be careful if you use this pattern. I don't know why it's like that, but basically if you fold it in half, you get the top edges like this and then the bottom edges like this. So I don't know why it's like that, but that's the warning. So lengthwise though, the front is perfect. I'm gonna have to do tiny narrow hem because I probably should have lengthened it even more. The train is ridiculous. Like, I'm sorry that you can't see this because there's no way for me to get it in the frame, but the train is a good foot longer than it should be. Like, if I cut off a foot of the train, I will still have maybe more of a train than what I want. It's so beyond ridiculous. So yeah, I have a lot to cut off there. Oh my God, it's so long. I'll cut off that hem, tweak the sleeve, and I'm probably gonna wait till last to figure out what the neckline thing is, just because, I mean, there's no way, but if I got this wearable by like the end of daylight tomorrow, maybe I could take pictures in the snow, because I'm kind of exhausted right now because what I did earlier today was I went and did 4 costume changes and took pictures in the snow because we don't get snow here. It's been over 2 years since we last had snow, and we had snow last night, and it's still going to be there by tomorrow. But at some point tomorrow, like by noon, oh that's true, by noon tomorrow it turns into rain, so maybe I won't take pictures of this tomorrow. In fact, I don't know when I'll get to take pictures of this outside because it's supposed to rain every day until like next weekend. Thanks, Washington. I feel like flattering wise, it's actually pretty good. Like, I was a little bit worried with all of these gathers that it would be really unflattering, but I feel like it's actually kind of cute. And the petticoat is doing an okay job. I'm wearing my Regency petticoat right now. It's doing an okay job of filling this out, but I do feel like this wants a more voluminous petticoat, which maybe I'll make in the future when I make the stays, but not now because this is supposed to be a 1 week project, and here it is Saturday night. So yeah, I am going to fix that and mark my hem, and then I will show you what it looks like when I have mock-up number 2. Okay, so I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I took a seam up the whole back of the arm, and that seemed to fix basically everything. Like, now it's fitting way better. All I did was I took it in a 1/2 inch on each side of the seam, so inch total. And yeah, it's way better. The one thing that I'm noticing is that I actually moved the elbow point down a little bit as I did that, and it was the wrong way because my elbow is up here and the point is like here, so I'm off a little bit. It does also seem like it's maybe twisted, but I already am not meeting the seams in the back, which I feel like it was probably supposed to do. And if I twisted it more forward to sit actually at my elbow, then it would be even more off. So I don't think I'm gonna do that. One thing that I am thinking of doing for the final though is to actually do a couple of little tuck pleats instead of doing the gathering, because I feel like that's actually more what they did. I also noticed that it was really too wide at the shoulder here, so I've drawn a little pink line for where I'm going to take it up the shoulder. It's not much, it's like a 1/4 inch, but it's something. The one thing I'm trying to debate about now is with the muslin, or this isn't muslin, this is the sheet. With the sheet here that I used for my mock-up, you can still kind of see where my chemise ends. And with one layer of the stripy fabric, I mean, it's like completely sheer and you can completely see it. And it does call for it to be lined in the pattern. I don't really feel like sleeves were normally lined, but I kind of think I want to line mine with muslin just so it's more like the bodice, and then because the skirt has the petticoat, so that's why it doesn't need lining. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Also, I chopped off that bit of the skirt, which is actually this much. This is how much I chopped off the bottom of the train. Yeah, I think that's actually more than a foot. And it was so needed. It's perfect length now. I just have to do a tiny little roll hem and it will be perfect. So I'm going to do the roll hem. I'm going to cut the sleeve out, which is now a 2-piece sleeve, and tweak that little bit of the shoulder. That's no big deal. And move the elbow up just a little bit with that point when I cut it out. So I'm going to cut it out of muslin and the stripey. But yeah, I'm pretty close. I'm probably not going to get finished tonight because it's like 10 o'clock, 10:30, but I am happy with where I'm at currently. Okay, so first off, ignore the fact that my hair looks gray because I took pictures in 18th century stuff earlier and I powdered and pomaded my hair. So that's why this looks like this. But secondly, I have cut out the sleeves. So I cut them out of the stripey and the muslin and then flatlined all of the pieces together and then assembled the side and back, front, I don't know, whatever, the seams of the sleeve. And now I have set this one in. And as I mentioned before, I had decided that I was going to make little dart pleat things in it instead of gathering the sleeve. And then when I went to actually put the sleeve in, I realized I didn't know where those needed to be. So I just kind of guessed at it. And honestly, I think they're mostly pretty good. I don't like that my first one starts this high up on the shoulder. I think it needs to start a little bit farther back, like maybe here, but it's pretty close. And so I'm totally fine with just like taking out a little bit and then just redoing that. But overall, I mean, the sleeve actually feels really good. Now, granted, I am not wearing my corset because I didn't feel like it. It's almost 11 p.m. and I don't want to put on my corset. But the sleeve is in a good place. Like, I'm really liking it. I feel comfortable just making that little tweak, figuring out where those darts are to match on the other sleeve and putting the other sleeve on. And yeah, then it just needs a little hem at the bottom of the sleeve here. I'm almost done sewing the hem of the dress. I'm doing that by hand, so it's taking a while, but I did a little bit last night and a little bit earlier today. I think I have like 1/6 of it or a little bit more than that left to go. So that I should be able to finish tonight, no problem. And I should be able to do the sleeves tonight too, as far as doing the hem on that. Setting the sleeve itself took almost no time at all, so that was great. And yeah, I still need to fix the neckline, but that is going to be a little bit longer. I think it's mostly a matter of just unpicking the top, maybe not even really unpicking it all, maybe just cutting it down and then folding it lower, because I think that is going to do a good job of getting it out of the way. And yeah, so I do have a mark there where I think it needs to be now, and probably just cutting off some of that top is the best bet, but I do need my corset on for that, so I think that's gonna have to be a tomorrow thing. So unfortunately, that means that this wasn't a 1-week project. It means it was a slightly longer than 1-week project, but also there was at least one day where I didn't work on this at all, so not too bad. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I am going to fix my little dart here and then set the other sleeve. So I'll be back once more showing you 2 sleeves. So I had more left on the hem than I had realized, so that's not quite done yet, but both of the sleeves are now done, and I have actually already hemmed the sleeve as well. So all I did was I turned it twice and then stitched it down with a whip stitch, pressed it in place and stitched it down. So got both of those done, which means all that's left is that one little bit of the hem plus fixing the front panel here, lowering that down, and then it will be complete. Okay, so I have the dress on, trying to fix the neckline here, and what I've kind of done just to begin with is I unpicked the seam that I'd already put in, or the hem that I'd already put in at the top, and I've kind of like folded it down, but it's still, oddly enough, wanting like a tiny little tuck dart vertically right here, like it wants to be pinched out. I know you can't see any of this, but I'm telling you anyway. So I don't know why that's happening, but I almost feel like maybe the best option is just to do that, to take that little dart out. I'm guessing that the curve of the neckline must be not quite what I needed or something, and I guess just folding it down is not giving me the correct curve. So yeah, taking a duck, I'm on a duck kick, guys. Taking a tuck right there, and I mean, it's literally like a 1/4 inch tuck both sides, so I guess 1/2 inch out, and then kind of folding down the rest of this so that it goes maybe about an inch down by the center, I think, so that it kind of tapers down there. I think that's going to be the best bet. It will get it out of the way, but still have it cover up my chemise neckline so that the chemise neckline, you can't tell where it is under the sheer. So I think that's going to be the best bet, and I'll just have that little tuck in there and not really care. The other thing that I realized I had forgotten to do, because I couldn't do it yet because it involves that layer also, are the closures. Because right now I just have it pinned in here, and I feel like, yes, that might actually be historically accurate that they pinned it, because I know a lot of times when they have like the bib front style gowns, you have that underlayer and it kind of wraps and pins. But I kind of hate that. Like, I know that it's flexible and adjustable and all of that, but just the idea of having to like pin myself into my clothing every time, I don't like it with 18th century either. And I feel like with Regency, that's where they started to come out of that. So I want to double check the American Duchess blog again to see if she had recommended anything in that case. And I want to check the book again too to see if there was anything in there. And otherwise, I'm just gonna kind of wing it. The pattern calls for hooks and eyes, which I feel like that's maybe not really accurate either. I don't remember there being much use of hooks and eyes in this period, but there was definitely use of buttons. Like, a lot of Regency dresses button up the back, for example, if you have a back closing dress, and like Spencer's and stuff often button up the front. So my thought is maybe buttons, but that also might show under the sheer. So I don't know, I've got a little bit of research to do on that, but I'm going to go ahead and take down this neckline, make the little tuck, and at least hopefully that will fix that issue, because that's the big issue. Closures are really a non-issue because, again, pins. It's done! So yay, I fixed the neckline. What I did wind up doing was folding this down farther. Like I said, I was going to actually cut a big old thing off, and then I folded it down farther so that it's still just a tiny little narrow hem. And I did do the tuck here. I did the whole folding down first, and then I put it on, pinned it shut, and closed the top over it and saw where it wanted to be tucked. And I just kind of like made the tuck while I was wearing it, pinned that in place, and then I opened the front up and sewed it in place by hand while I was wearing it. So a little weird on my eyes, but it worked really well, and it allowed me to just be super, super precise in there. And I don't think it's very obvious where it's sewn down either, because the tuck is sewn to the outer. So that's like where the connection stops, and where it becomes to the inner plus the outer is at that tuck. And I think that that's working really well. And I did look through the American Duchess blog and also through the book. In the blog, it's not specified how she's doing the closures at all, but she doesn't mention changing it from the pattern, so I'm guessing it's hooks. In the book, it's pinned shut. Like when Abby is wearing it, their 1790s dress in the book is pinned shut. So I am just gonna go with the pins for now. I did try some of the buttons, but all of my white buttons that are like flat are really, really tiny. I would need to do like 6 of them, and that just seems super, super excessive. So I am not going to do the buttons. The hooks and eyes, I just didn't like that idea. It's going to add like a bump there, kind of. I might do it at some point, but I don't like that idea for now. So I have decided to stick with the pins, because all I need are 3 pins to pin it shut, and then once you tie this over it, you don't see or feel those pins at all, and the tie is just really nice. This, by the way, is twill tape, 1/4 inch twill tape. I can't remember if I mentioned that, but both in the channel here and the channel at the neckline, it's 1/4 inch twill tape. That is what the pattern recommends, but I'm sure you could do just fine with 1/4 inch ribbon as well. I just happen to already have this in the stash. So actually, for a nice little stash busting project that was done in just slightly more than a week, because I did not work every day, but this was actually pretty good. I mean, yes, I made a lot of changes to the pattern. I basically ignored all of the instructions, and I changed the pattern pieces. So it's very different than the actual simplicity pattern, but I think it comes out the way that it's supposed to. I'm really happy with the look. It's very flowy and light and not good for the weather outside. So if by the time I go to actually share this video, which is like a week from now, if there's a day that's not raining, I will insert some lovely pictures where I took, did my hair all nicely and went and took lovely shots and video and etc. all in the outdoors. I will insert those right here. But if not, here's a few pictures from taking it in my bedroom with my curtain backdrop. to be it from me for this project. Again, I'm really happy with how it came out. And hey, now I have completed my goal. I have something from every decade from the 1760s through the 19 teens. I made that goal like 10 years ago or something like that when I was a tiny little bitty baby costumer. I made a goal to have something from every single era, and I was missing this kind of transitional era between the 1780s and the Regency period. This was the only thing I was missing, and now I'm not missing it anymore. I think I might go for more for this outfit as well in the future, or this era in the future, maybe making one of those like open robes or something just to accessorize with this, but otherwise I am pretty darn happy with where it stands. So anyway, if you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon, and if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs like this on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to support me and all that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi account down below, and I'd also like to give a big thank you to my Edwardian level patron, Heidi. Thank you so much to all of my patrons, and thank all of you for watching this video. I do hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!